right, picture this. Okay, you're a teenager, like a really talented teenager, but things are tough. Circumstances are forcing you to make this huge decision, like a life-altering decision. Stay in the country that you love or go after your dreams. I mean, it's a tough one, right? A lot of us have been there. And that's exactly the kind of story we're diving into today. The story of Lionel Messi.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a story that really hits home, especially for those of us who, well, who remember what it was like in Argentina back in the late 90s, those tough times, those choices so many families had to make.
Exactly. And we're going to break down this whole incredible journey. We'll be using the first episode of this podcast, The Last Cup, from NPR and Futuro Media. We'll see how, Messi's early life in Argentina mixed in with all those economic struggles eventually led him to, well, play for Spain before eventually, going back and playing for his home country.
One thing this podcast really shows is just how much soccer is a part of Argentina. It's like more than just a game. It's their culture, their pride, like an escape for a lot of people.
Yeah, they even say in the podcast that there's a soccer field on almost every block. Like every kid dreams of being the next Maradona.
Yeah.
And that's the world Messi grew up in. Right from the start, his talent, it was obvious.
Yeah, he was on this youth team. They were so good. They called them, get this, the Machine of '87. Like, can you imagine that? Just kids, barely teenagers, playing so well. They're already being compared to, like, some perfect machine.
Crazy, right? But then the podcast takes you deeper. It shows these challenges that Messi had to face. They found out he had a growth hormone deficiency, and it happened right when Argentina's economy was going downhill fast.
And let me tell you, this crisis, it hit everybody hard. Messi's family, too. They talk about how the club, the one that was helping pay for his treatment, they just couldn't afford it anymore. It's like a harsh reminder of how those big economic forces really mess with people's lives.
When I heard that part, it really took me back to my own experience, I mean. When Argentina's economy crashed, so many people, including my family, we had to make these really difficult choices, leaving everyone behind, starting fresh in a new country. It was something a lot of people went through back then.
A whole generation. And it wasn't just about finding a better job, It was about leaving everything you knew, carrying this hope for something better. And always that dream of going back home someday.
And while all this was happening in Argentina, soccer in Europe, it was booming. Teams had tons of money, and they were looking for new talent, especially from Latin America. Messi's dad, he saw this as an opportunity, a chance for his son to be the best he could be.
This is where Messi's story kind of joins this big change in soccer. You had these European leagues with all this money from TV and sponsors, scouting young players from Latin America, giving them chances they could only dream of back home. It was a new era. And Messi, he was right at the front of it all.
So there he was, just 13 years old, at FC Barcelona, worlds away from everything he knew. It's this story of crazy talent and ambition, but also, sacrifice, resilience, especially for someone so young.
Think about it, leaving your family, your friends, everything you're used to at that age. It shows how much dedication he had, how focused he was, committed to the game, totally.
It's amazing. And then here's where it gets interesting. Even though he'd been trained and developed in Spain, Messi made this decision that showed just how loyal he was to Argentina. He chose to play for them internationally, said no to playing for Spain.
It was more than just a sports decision, right? It was about who he was, where he belonged. Even though he was doing great in Spain, part of him always wanted to be back in Argentina.
And then comes this big moment, the under-20 match against Paraguay. A friendly match, but they set it up for one reason, to make sure Messi would play for Argentina. The whole thing was almost funny how it happened.
Sounds like something out of a movie. The podcast describes it, right? Empty stadium, last-minute substitutions, and of course, Messi scores this amazing goal that seals the deal.
You can just feel it, the tension, the excitement. And then, even after winning, Messi's journey, it wasn't over. He was back home. But after all those years in Europe, how would people treat him? Was going back home as easy as he thought it would be?
That's the big question. And it's something we'll dig into next time. We'll look at how complicated coming home can be and the challenges Messi faced trying to fit in with his national team.
One thing the podcast really points out is that coming back home, it's not always easy. It's like there's all these challenges, these things you don't expect. And Messi's story is like the perfect example.
Yeah, you can't just go back and expect everything to be the same. You change, the place changes. It's like a whole new puzzle you got to figure out. For Messi, he was coming back to a team that already had its own way of doing things, their style, their expectations.
And it sounds like there were some clashes. The podcast talks about how Messi was playing like a Spaniard, which for some people, it wasn't the Argentinian way. They even quote someone saying, "Here, we play with a knife under our poncho."
Wow, yeah. That says a lot about how different their approach to the game was. It's not just about being good, you know? It's about attitude, passion, that toughness that Argentinian soccer is known for.
So basically, Messi's fancy European style, it didn't really fit in right away. He had to like adapt, find a way to mix his skills with that more aggressive, almost unpredictable style of his Argentinian teammates.
Imagine it like this. He was learning a whole new dialect of the same language. The basics were there, but the little things, the rhythm, the way they understand each other, without even talking, he had to learn it all again. It makes sense that it took some time for him to really click with the team.
The podcast also talks about how people reacted to Messi coming back. Some people saw him as this savior, the guy who'd been bring Argentina back to glory. But others, they weren't so sure.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing with heroes coming back. There's all this pressure to live up to what people expect, to show you haven't forgotten where you came from, that you still get what the country is all about.
And for someone like Messi, who's kind of, quiet, keeps to himself, dealing with all that must have been really hard, especially in a culture where they really value showing your passion, your energy.
You're right. That's a key part of this whole thing. Messi's not like Maradona, you know. He's not flashy, doesn't talk a big game, he just plays. But when everyone's used to seeing that fiery personality, it could look like he doesn't care as much.
It's crazy how your personality can be seen so differently depending on where you are, what the culture is like. What might seem humble and focused in one place could look cold and distant in another.
And that's where this podcast goes deeper than just sports. It gets into the culture, how it shapes Messi's journey. It's about identity, belonging, and that connection to your homeland, which can be complicated.
A lot of us can relate to that, leaving and coming back, trying to figure out who you become and how you fit in with the place you used to call home.
Exactly. Messi's story shows us that home isn't just a place. It's something that changes along with you. It's about feeling like you belong, not just physically, but also inside yourself, accepting that you change, and the place changes too.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? About hope, about not giving up.
It reminds us that even when things are tough, when it seems impossible, we can adapt, we can grow, we can decide what home means to us.
It's a journey, that's for sure, with its ups and downs. And as we'll see in the last part of our deep dive, Messi's return to Argentina, it was just the beginning of a much bigger story, one that's still going on today. It wasn't just about soccer when Messi went back to Argentina.
No, it was like he was figuring out who he was again, finding his place in a country that had changed while he was gone,
The podcast does a really good job of showing how emotional that whole thing was.
I mean, just think about it. He left as a kid, practically a stranger to his own country.
And when he came back, he was this huge star. Everyone was looking to him, hoping he'd make Argentina great again.
Man, that kind of pressure, it's gotta be intense. It's not just about playing well, it's about representing the whole country, what they stand for.
It's like one of those classic stories, right? The prodigal son comes back, but everything's different. The place he left, and even himself.
Yeah, you see that struggle between the past and the present, the familiar and the new, the individual versus everyone else.
And that's where you see Messi growing, not just as a player, but as a person, too.
He had to find a way to combine that European style he was so good at with the kind of raw passion you see in Argentinian soccer. It was like trying to make two totally different things work together.
And the podcast makes it clear that wasn't easy,
Of course not. It takes a lot of, looking at yourself honestly, being humble, questioning everything you thought you knew.
It's something a lot of us can understand, especially if we've ever left and then come back somewhere.
Absolutely. Going back to a place where you used to belong, it makes you think about how you've changed, how you fit into a place that's changing too.
So what do you think? What does Messi's story tell us about home?
I think it shows that home isn't just a place you go to. It's something that keeps changing, just like you do. It's about feeling like you belong, not just in a place, but also within yourself. Accepting that both you and that place are always evolving.
It's a pretty hopeful message, don't you think?
Yeah, it tells us that even when things are hard, even when it feels impossible, we can adapt, we can grow. We get to decide what home means to us.
Messi's story, it's really about that, connection, identity, and what it means to truly belong, which can be pretty complicated.
It goes beyond just sports, It's about being human, trying to find a place where we fit in.
On that note, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever felt that pull to go back home? Or had to make a big life choice? Let us know in the comments. We'll be back with another deep dive soon. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for those moments that make life so interesting.